Hey everybody, it's Mike and Denise. We're out walking and we're going to do another article for you, reviewing comment on the plant-based news. This one Denise wanted to find and talk about Alzheimer's and dementia. And she's found an article that kind of talks about that and basically how to not get Alzheimer's and dementia. Nobody wants that, but there's actually things that you can do. And a lot of them are talked about in my book, Live to 150, because it's just habits. And that's free at liveto150.org. But let's get into the article. What's the title of this article?
This is from the Mayo Clinic, and it's called "What is the Link Between Alzheimer's and Type 3 Diabetes?" And it's showing a photograph, you probably can't see it, of a piece of the brain that's got some amyloid plaques in it.
Okay.
So researchers have known for several years that being overweight and having type 2 diabetes can increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. But they're now beginning to talk about another form of diabetes, type 3 diabetes. This form of diabetes is associated with Alzheimer's disease. Type 3 diabetes occurs when neurons in the brain become unable to respond to insulin.
Okay, what is this date on this article?
2017.
Holy crap. Okay.
It's been around for a while.
You guys are probably, you probably never heard of this. It's 2022, so it's 5 years later. And you know, this is not stuff that people want, information that people want to get out. Why? Because of what it is and what you need to do to not get it, which isn't economically feasible or economically favorable to a lot of companies.
Yeah, so you probably didn't know this, but the insulin circulates in your brain too. So it's essential for basic tasks, including memory and learning. Some researchers believe insulin deficiency is central to the cognitive decline of Alzheimer's disease. The Mayo Clinic's Florida and Rochester campuses recently participated in a multi-institution clinical study testing whether a new insulin nasal spray can improve Alzheimer's symptoms.
Wait, insulin nasal spray?
Yeah, just spray.
Okay, are we dealing with the root cause of issues here?
No, but they do talk about causation here.
Okay, but it's insulin resistance, which is type 2 diabetes. We've done videos on this before, what's type 2 diabetes. And I talk about it in my book too, and that's basically where you're eating too high of a percentage of calories from fat, and it causes changes at the cellular level where the cells resist insulin. It doesn't pass right, your pancreas kicks into overdrive, and either that fails or your body starts to not function right because it can't do the work it needs to do at the cellular level, etc., etc.
So the results of that study are forthcoming. I'll have to check and see if the results are out by now.
Okay.
But how is this tied to the Alzheimer's gene APOE? A new study from Gujan Bu, PhD, a Mayo Clinic neuroscientist, and Mary Lowell-Leary, professor of medicine, found that the culprit is the variant of the Alzheimer's gene known as APOE4. The team found that APOE4, which is present in approximately 20% of the general population and more than half of the Alzheimer's cases, is responsible for interrupting how the brain processes insulin. Mice with the APOE4 gene showed insulin impairment, particularly in old age. Also, a high-fat diet could accelerate the process in middle-aged mice with the gene.
Okay, well, I'm almost certain that we know at this point in time with science that the high-fat diet, high percentage of calories from fat, creates that condition.
Yeah.
All right, they're not saying that, and we read an article, I remember, from the Cleveland Clinic, I think, where they did everything but stop short of saying that. They didn't say it, but that's what we believe is actually going on.
And if you want the easiest way to follow a low-fat diet, avoid meat and dairy. And no meat or dairy is low-fat.
And the vegan junk food, all the food-like products, you got to eat straight up food is grown, and not high-fat. There are even some fruits that are high-fat, like durian. You want to avoid those. You want to avoid avocados, unless you're having an issue where you're actually, unless your BMI is below normal, then you can eat those things. That's your reward, okay? Because you've done so well with everything else.
The gene and the peripheral insulin resistance caused by the high-fat diet together induced insulin resistance in the brain, Dr. Bu said. The findings are published in Neuron. That must be the name of the scientific journal. So there is a link to watch Dr. Boo explaining that. The team went on to describe how it all works in the neurons. They found that the APOE4 protein produced by the gene can bind more aggressively to insulin receptors on the surfaces of neurons than its normal counterpart, APOE3. As if playing a game of musical chairs, the APOE4 protein outcompetes the normal protein and blocks the receptor. APOE4 goes on to do lasting damage to brain cells. After blocking the receptor...
Sounds like alcohol.
Yeah. The sticky APOE4 protein begins to clump and becomes toxic. Further, once the protein enters the interior of the neuron, it clumps. The clumps get trapped within the cell's machinery, impeding the receptors from returning to the neuron surface to do their work. The insulin signal processing gets increasingly more impaired, starving brain cells, and that's what causes your brain to shrink and die. The study has furthered our understanding of the gene that's the strongest genetic risk factor known for the Alzheimer's disease, says Dr. Boo, who adds that ultimately the finding may personalize treatment for patients. For instance, an insulin nasal spray or a similar treatment may be significantly more helpful for patients who don't have the APOE4 gene. Patients who have the gene may need additional medications to help prevent cognitive decline. So that was the end of the article.
That was the end.
So
what's the takeaway?
The takeaway is, I'll check on the nasal spray, but my takeaway is this Alzheimer's gene is only present in 20% of the population. So Alzheimer's isn't a normal part of growing old, for one. Number two,
the other thing, the Alzheimer's gene, did they say in the article, because I didn't catch it, and most people don't talk about it, that you can change the expression of your genes by the food that you eat?
Yeah, get that, because food changes your chromosome. It can damage your DNA.
Right, so it can change, it can possibly, even if you have that gene, you can change the expression of it, because you just might be more sensitive. You may have to, because you have that gene, it's not a death sentence or a sentence that you say you're going to get Alzheimer's or dementia. It's saying that you need to be more careful than the average person. You need to make better choices than the average person. And if and when you do, you will probably not have to be subject to what you thought you were, which is actually Alzheimer's and dementia. You can prevent it.
Right. And those that did have Alzheimer's, the article said only 50% of that population had this gene. So even if you do have it, there's a 50-50 chance that you have this gene. You can still... Your habits may be so bad without the gene that you're going to get it anyway. Yeah. Or you could, that's the way I see it. I see most people really... most forms of self-abuse are legal. And I'm talking about food. Eating the wrong foods, they're legal. Yeah. So you got to watch out. Your body will only take so much. And you can act like you had nothing to do with it, but I don't believe that. Yeah, so we read another article that states that no amount of medication can be as effective as exercise. So okay, that's why we're out. We're out exercising now. So they didn't even talk about the exercise dimension in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's. We're out. Yeah, we're doing purposeful exercise. I have my shopping bags here. We're going to the grocery store, and of course Denise is going to make me carry back all the groceries. She's going to get walk. She's going to get exercise. But I am the guy, so I'm supposed to be bigger anyway. I have to get the muscles, the strength training, right? Yeah. So, and the aerobic exercise. So the big factor that I heard in the destroying of the neurons in the brain is getting clogged with a high-fat oil. If you avoid those amyloid plaques, then you don't have to worry as much about this. So avoid low-fat diet. Yeah, have a and almost all plants are low-fat, with the exception of nut seeds and avocados, and some high-fat fruits like durian. Everything else, go for it. Yeah. We're talking food is grown. We're not talking about processed food. or even altered in any way. Cooking alters stuff. Okay. Once you start to move away from the food is grown state, the further you get from it, the less beneficial and the more harm that is actually caused. Yeah, that's our belief anyway. So avoid oil. Yeah, is oil natural? Will you ever find a bottle of oil just sitting around in nature having just grown? No. No. And don't believe all the hype about olive oil being good for you. It's not. Yeah, it'll cause this dementia and Alzheimer's. And the other thing is, we've learned recently from reading some articles about oil
that it's really just processed fat, right?
Yeah, it's
So like you hear about processed sugar, you hear about processed foods. Well, what about processed fat?
It's not naturally occurring in
All
nature.
oil is a processed fat.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, anything else?
No, that's all. Thanks,
All right, we're gonna
everybody.
keep walking, and I guess we're putting our sunglasses on now.
Yep.
It's getting bright. So we'll see you in the next video. Be sure to like our video here if you got some value out of it. Leave us some comments, questions, anything else we should do, let us know in the comments. And of course, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time. And live to 150 at liveto150.org. It's totally free. Bye.
Bye.